My name's Liam. My mum's a smackhead. And this is my story. So the first memory I got of my mum was probably visiting her in jail. We did this maybe once a month, something like that. I always remember. It's quite a large room we went into the jail, with loads of people in there. And we was always sat at a bench with us on one side and her on the other. Obviously, as a kid, it was a hard thing for me to grasp because I couldn't have my mum at home with me. This is the only way I could see her. So it was a bit hard dealing with that, and I always remember afterwards, and I think this was my nan's way of trying to cheer us up. She used to take us to like a kids play area, like we used to call it the Wacky Warehouse, and we used to stay there for hours, and I think it kind of like brought us down from a disappointment of not being able to go back with mum. At this point, I'll probably be about 7 or 8 years old. Now, while other kids that age are probably going to the park, enjoying days out with their parents, I'm spending my weekend or my day visiting mine in jail. So that was a really tough part of my life. Now, when my mum finally came out of jail, she came to live with us at my nan's house, and I was staying in a very, very small box room, and my mum was staying in that room with me. I genuinely thought things were going to change when she came out of jail, like I did every time she went in. I thought she'll come out, maybe she's changed her mind in jail, maybe she's changed her ways. I thought maybe she's going to be better this time, but it never happened. It was still the same stuff, every single day. I used to stay up in my bed at night till 9, 10 o'clock at night, constantly asking my nan, when's mum coming back? When's mum coming back? And my nan said she didn't know all the time, because she didn't know. Then when my mum finally came back, I was so relieved and happy to see her, but it felt like she was never the same to see me. She was never happy to see me. All she was bothered about when she came through the door was getting her hit, taking that bag of heroin. Always, she used to just come in straight away, lunge for a pair of the closest trainers that I had. She used to pull the laces out of them. She used to sit on the bed straight away. She used to prepare her heroin, and then she'd get the lace that she pulled out of my trainer, wrap it round her arm, she'd put it tight, and then she'd begin to inject herself. And the one time she did it, she went really, really bad, and I genuinely thought she was dying. I was scared for my life. I looked at her, and it's like she collapsed forward off the bed. She just fell straight over onto the floor, knocking everything off in her path, and she was just lifeless on the floor. I mean, as a kid, seeing that done my head in, and I genuinely have to deal with that to this day. So a daily routine in the life of my mum would be wake up in the morning. I'd wake up, as a kid does, I'd ask her to take me somewhere to the park or to somewhere nice. And she'd always say to me, we've got to do something first, baby, and then I'll take you after. So we'd head into town straight away. Her favourite thing to do was go into one of the local shops like WH Smith's. She'd go straight to the back of the shop with this big bag she had in her hand, and always remember that the CDs was at the back of the shop at this time. This was years ago. So what she'd do, she'd walk up there, she'd have a quick look around, see if no one was watching or if anyone was around that she didn't like the look of, and she'd just wipe the shelf straight off into the bag, all the CDs with like these big plastic cases on, straight into the bag. And then she'd grab my arm and she would run for her life. Now, sometimes she could get away, other times she couldn't. We was getting chased by security guards daily, but on the days we could get away, the routine was go and sell the stuff that she'd just got from WH Smith's or whatever shop she'd been to. Then it was head to the train station, make a phone call from the phone box outside the train station to order what she was going up West Brom to get. Then it was straight up to West Brom, get off at the train station, we'd walk out of the train station, down the road, and we'd go one of either two ways. We'd go right or left. If we went right, more than likely we was getting into a car, driving round, she'd do a little deal with a bloke, and then she'd just get dropped off on the side of the road and we'd have to walk back. If she went left, then we were going up to meet someone in the alleyway. And then after she got what she wanted to get, the same place we went to each and every time was a multi-storey car park just down the road from the train station. And it was the most horrible place I remember seeing as a kid. This dingy, dark, gloomy looking place that my mum used to drag me into daily. I used to have to go in there and watch her inject herself every single time. There's me as a kid, a really young kid, just walking around this car park and parts of this building while she's downstairs, upstairs, or wherever she is, just injecting herself. In my eyes, thinking about it now, there was never a thought for me there. There was never any concern about what I was doing. And then to come back a lot of the time and feel like she was gonna die because she was in that bad of a state. It's heartbreaking. Now, one of the worst times that I've seen my mum was again in West Brom. And it was in the multi-storey car park that we used to visit regularly. We goes in there, as we does, through this little side window, gets into the building, she finds a little corner, again, takes all of her stuff out, her needle, her citric acid, her lighter, all the stuff she needed to prepare her heroin. She'd do what she needed to do, then she'd ended up pulling down her trousers and then injecting straight into her groin most of the time. That was one of the main things she did. So while she's taking her hit, I'm walking around this building, just looking around, being a nosy kid. I came back to her the once, and I genuinely thought I was coming back to a dead body. I looked at my mum and she was pale and she wasn't moving, and I'm on top of her, crying my eyes out, thinking that my mum was dead. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether to go and get help. I had no way of phoning an ambulance. I didn't know what to do. I was just screaming in this multi-storey car park over my mum, thinking my mum had died, and I was there on my own. But eventually she came round and said it was fine. But that was one of the worst times I ever remember. Now, another way my mum used to make her money was a thing I wish I never did remember. Now, she used to prostitute herself, and the way she used to do this, there was a couple of ways that she did it. Now, she either used to go into the town centre and go and see a certain taxi driver, or there was another person that she saw regularly. And the taxi driver, the way that worked is she used to go down to town with me in the freezing cold weather. She used to go up to his taxi, she used to be speaking to him for about 5 or 10 minutes. Obviously, while I was just running around doing whatever I was doing. I'd jump in this taxi with this bloke that I don't know. We'd drive to a house, and obviously once we pulled up, she'd get out, then she'd come and get me out, and then she'd walk me into this house. And I always remember, as soon as we walked in, I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never seen this place before. Obviously it was all weird to me. But she stuck me on the sofa in this house, and she put this really nasty, itchy, like woolly blanket over me and used a cushion for my head. Now, she stuck a telly in front of me, and I always remember the film I was watching. The film was Batman Returns. I remember lying there, watching this film, and then listening to the noises of my mum doing what she was doing with this bloke. To this day, them sounds still play up here. It's horrible. I just wished I could get out of that situation. I did anything I could to block them noises out. I might turn the telly up a little bit or just try and pull the blanket over my ears. Now, throughout the years, we hoped and we prayed that my mum changed her ways, but it never did. I mean, the things that woman did and the things that she got herself into didn't only cause her issues, it caused issues for me and my family too. She got us into some serious shit. Some really, really bad stuff. But if I'm honest, I don't really want to talk about it. Nah, I can't do that. Now, growing up, it wasn't easy for me at all. One of the hardest parts of me growing up was probably the time I spent at school. Now, at school was a constant battle, every single day. I mean, who wants to be friends with a Smackhead's kid? You know what I mean? I suffered constant abuse from near enough every person that was in my year. You know what I mean? Daily, I used to come into school, didn't have the best clothes, might have had an hole or two in my trainers. And all they'd ever do to me, instead of trying to help me or show me support or be my friend, was call me a smackhead, a crackhead, a tramp. You know what I mean? Kids used to say to me that when the police come for me, it's not Nino. They used to say it was needle. It broke me as a kid. I spent years of getting tortured by people for something that wasn't my fault. Now, all this went on for a couple of years, but eventually I got to a point where I thought, nah, I can't have this no more. I'm not going to be a victim for something that's not my fault. So, the first instance of me actually doing something about my bullies and people picking on me was, we was on this golf course. There were 4 of us there, obviously including me. And this one kid, the biggest kid, he kept going on at me all day. Kept saying, "You're a smackhead, you're a baghead." And I just got to a point where I had enough. I think all the years of getting called those names just come out of me in one instance. I just lost my temper. Now, I grabbed him by the top of his jumper, and I just headbutted him straight away, And I've knocked him on the floor, and he's on the floor like he's out cold. And there was that much anger there, I wanted to hurt him some more because all this anger was just coming out of me. So I'm dragging him across the floor, and the 2 other people there were trying to stop me. I was trying to drown him in this small pond on this golf course after I'd hit him. And I just lost my temper so much because I just couldn't take it no more. I couldn't take the abuse. No, it wasn't just me in the family. I did have 2 younger brothers too. But the one I was worried about most was my younger brother. But thankfully, social services ended up getting involved with the situation, and he eventually ended up getting fostered out to a new family. Now, I'm so happy to know that he's never ever going to have to deal with the things that we had to deal with. He's never going to get bullied because his mum's a smackhead. He's never ever going to get looked at a different type of way because his mum's a smackhead. He's going to have a chance at a normal life. And for that, I'm so happy. Now, I get regular updates about him yearly, which I love to see. I love to see his progress. I love to see how he's growing up through the letters I read. But then on the other hand, I'll read certain parts of the letter and then I'll just have a massive burst of anger going through me because I think to myself, if my mum hadn't been the way she'd been, then he'd still be here with us. I sit there reading those letters and I cry my eyes out because I know my brother's never going to be with us. It's one of them things that sticks with me all the time. So my mum didn't care that much really about us. But to me, family's everything. And not long after I left school, I started a family of my own. When I was 15 years old, believe it or not, I had my baby girl. I had my daughter, this beautiful little girl that changed my life for the better. I'm so grateful that she came along because she did change my life more than she realises. She saved me. Now, after having my daughter, I enjoyed that time. Then a couple of years later, we ended up having my son. Again, it was over the moon. But as much as I was loving spending the time with my kids and living with my kids, the relationship that I was in at the time really just wasn't working out. So we went our separate ways. Quite shortly after, I ended up getting into another relationship, and I was so happy. I'd found an amazing girl who was there for me, and I was still having my kids, which meant everything to me. But then, shortly after we got together, in 2014, my life changed dramatically, and something happened that I wish to God never did. And in 2014, obviously my partner had got pregnant, the new one I was with. Everything was going well until she got to about 30 weeks. Now when she got to 30 weeks, we found out she had something called polyhydramnios, excess fluid around the baby. Cut a long story short, our baby ended up dying. And yeah, it just ripped us both apart when our boy passed away. Now, I was 19 at the time, and having to go through something like that is soul destroying. It's still as painful as it was then to this day. I was 19 years old, carrying my little boy's coffin across that graveyard, and it just destroyed me. I mean, I was trying to be there for my partner, who was in an absolute mess, the same as I was. I mean, but I was crumbling myself. I had my whole life ahead of me, but all I could think about doing was just ending it all. It ruined me.
Born into the arms of the angels, 22nd of the 7th, 2014. An angel in the book of life wrote down my baby's birth and whispered as she closed the book, "Too beautiful for earth." Rest in peace, son.
So after my son died, I kind of fell into a real dark place. I couldn't come to grips with the fact that I'd never be able to hold my little boy in my arms and see him running around. It just got me bad, but we got through, and then eventually my partner ended up getting pregnant again, but it was short-lived because she had a miscarriage, and it just brought us back to square one. We thought we was never going to get a chance at having a baby together. Now, not long after that, she got pregnant again, and because of what we'd already been through, we just thought it was going to go wrong. It was like we were preparing ourselves to fail. But thankfully, there was a light at the end of the tunnel, because she eventually gave birth to a beautiful little boy. And he was so perfect, and I think after losing our son, having a boy helped, because it's another boy there. And it's not replacing him in any way, shape or form, but it's just nice to have a boy straight after something like that. And then a couple of years after that, we ended up being blessed again by having a little girl, this perfect little girl. And then from there, it's just been great. We've now got 2 happy, healthy kids, and it's amazing. Through all the heartache and all the pain and all the things we went through, there was light at the end of the tunnel. And now we have these 2 beautiful kids that make both of our lives better. Now, people will probably sit there and watch this story or listen to it and think to themselves, how was he held it together through all of that, the things he went through? The answer to that is, there's 3 things. I've got my nan, who was a massive part of my life, who's really supported me and looked after me and raised me. And I've got my partner, who's absolutely brilliant. She's there for me when I need her. She pulls me up when I'm down. Just an all-round lovely person. And then number 3 is my kids, because I just love my kids and how they make me feel now. You know what I mean? And them 3 things, them 3 people, probably don't realise this, but they've saved my life. Times I was in a dark depression and a dark hole, thinking about them brought me through it and made me want to keep going rather than just quit and give up. So the appreciation I have for them people, it's undescribable. You know what's weird? My granddad said to me years ago, he said, Liam, you will never be able to fully trust a woman because of your mum. And when I think about it now, it's complete bollocks. Because the 2 people in my life that have got my back are 2 women, my nan and my fiance. So, them 2 people, I love with all my heart, and I do trust them. So I guess my granddad was wrong with that sense. My advice to anyone that's going through the same situation that I've been through, whether it be kids, teenagers or adults, just know you're not alone. Try and seek help from anyone you can. I know it's hard to get people to listen sometimes, but try your hardest, because you don't deserve to be in that position. You need to try and find someone, a friend's parent, you know what I mean, a family member, someone at school, a work colleague, anybody. Just don't suffer in silence like I did. Don't go through what I went through. Just try and get some help, because you will feel better for it. My name's Liam. My mum's a smackhead, but I'm still here.